Commander Zexthul's mandibles clicked in amusement as he reviewed the human service record displayed on his holographic interface. The cramped quarters of the Dominion's Fang echoed with his chittering laughter, drawing curious glances from his Kitherian subordinates. Captain Sarah Chen, he read aloud, his translator rendering the human name with obvious mockery. Formerly of the Terran Defense Corps, dishonorably discharged for excessive force and failure to follow engagement protocols. His 4 eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. The pathetic humans couldn't even keep their own warrior in line. The hologram showed a slight human female, barely reaching 5.5 feet in height, with dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Her personnel file listed dozens of successful military operations, but Zexthul focused only on the final entry, court-martialed for the unauthorized orbital bombardment of a pirate stronghold that had resulted in significant civilian casualties. "Sir," his tactical officer, Subcommander Veltok, interjected nervously, "the human vessel is requesting permission to dock. Should we grant it?" Zexthul waved a clawed appendage dismissively. "Let this disgraced human come aboard. Perhaps we can extract some useful intelligence about Terran defensive capabilities before we dispose of her." The Dominion's Fang was a Kitherian dreadnought, 3 kilometers of biometallic armor and plasma weaponry that had conquered 17 star systems in the past decade. Its crew of 800 warriors represented the apex of their species' military might. The approaching human vessel, by contrast, was a converted cargo hauler, barely 200 meters long, a pathetic civilian craft masquerading as a warship. 30 minutes later, Captain Chen stood in Zexthul's command chamber, flanked by 6 heavily armed Kitherian guards. She appeared remarkably calm for someone who had just walked into the heart of enemy territory. Her hands were clasped behind her back, and she studied the elaborate trophy wall displaying the skulls of defeated alien commanders with academic interest. "I've come to discuss terms," Chen said without preamble, her voice steady despite being surrounded by creatures that could tear her apart with their bare claws. Zexthul's laughter filled the chamber again. "Terms. You amuse me, human. Your species has been marked for extinction. Your pathetic colonies will burn, your homeworld will be glassed, and your genetic material will be harvested for our bioweapons program." He leaned forward in his command throne, savoring the moment. "What could you possibly offer that would interest the Kitherian Empire?" Chen's expression didn't change. "Surrender." The silence that followed was broken only by the subtle hum of the ship's biomechanical systems. Then Zexthul erupted in genuine mirth, his mandibles spreading wide to reveal rows of serrated teeth. "You offer us surrender? You, a disgraced human captain with a cargo hauler and delusions of grandeur?" He gestured to his officers, who joined in his laughter. "Your reputation precedes you, Chen. Even your own species cast you out for being too violent. What could you possibly do to threaten the might of the Kitherian Empire?" Chen nodded thoughtfully, as if she had expected this response. "I was wondering if you'd done your homework on humans, or if you'd just skimmed the surface." She looked directly at Zexthul, her brown eyes reflecting an unsettling calm. "You read about my court-martial, but did you research why I was really discharged?" "Excessive force," Zexthul sneered. "Killing civilians." "No," Chen corrected softly. "I was discharged because I refused to stop killing pirates after they had officially surrendered. The civilians were human collaborators who had been selling children to alien slavers." Her voice carried a hint of something that made the Kitherian Guards shift uncomfortably. The Terran Defense Corps believed in rules of engagement, prisoner rights, and proportional response. I believed in making sure monsters never had the chance to hurt anyone again. She paused, letting that information settle before continuing. They called it excessive force when I spent 3 days hunting down every single pirate who had escaped the initial bombardment. They called it a war crime when I tracked their suppliers to 17 different systems and eliminated them one by one. They called it insubordination when I refused to accept their surrender. Zexthul's laughter had died away completely. Something in the human's tone was beginning to concern him, though he couldn't quite identify what. The truth is, Chen continued, humanity threw me out because I was too thorough, too willing to do what needed to be done without regard for political consequences or moral hand-wringing. She smiled then, and it was the most terrifying expression Zexthul had ever seen on any sentient being. They thought I was a monster, but I'm not a monster. I'm a human who has decided to stop pretending to be civilized. Enough of this, Zexthul snarled, rising from his throne. Guards, execute this. The lights went out. Emergency illumination. Cast the command chamber in hellish red light as alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Zexthul's tactical displays showed impossible readings. Massive hull breaches throughout the vessel, life support failing on dozens of decks, and his crew dying by the hundreds. What? He began, but Chen's voice cut through the chaos. While you were laughing at my reputation, she said conversationally, my ship finished uploading something special into your biomechanical systems. Humans discovered something interesting about Catherian technology. It's all interconnected, all biological, all vulnerable to the right kind of viral agent. Zexthul looked at his guards and realized with growing horror that they were standing perfectly still, their eyes vacant and unseeing. You see, Chen continued, I didn't come here to negotiate. I came here to field test a new bioweapon designed specifically for your species. Every Catherian on this ship is already dead. Their nervous systems shut down about 3 minutes ago. They're just standing there because their exoskeletons are still holding them upright. The commander felt his own limbs beginning to stiffen as the engineered virus reached his central nervous system. The beautiful thing about your empire, Chen said, walking casually toward the exit, is that every ship, every space station, every colony is connected to the same bio-network. By the time I return to human space, your entire civilization will be nothing but empty shells. As paralysis crept up his body, Zexthul managed one final question. Why? Chen paused at the threshold, considering her answer. You threatened my species with extinction, she said simply. I'm returning the favor. The difference is I don't make empty threats. She disappeared into the crimson-lit corridor, leaving behind a starship full of corpses and the final terrible understanding that humanity's reputation for mercy had always been a choice, not a weakness. 3 days later, Captain Sarah Chen's converted cargo hauler limped back into Terran space, broadcasting a simple message to the Defense Corps. Catherian threat neutralized. Request permission to dock for debriefing. In the silence that followed, every human in the galaxy suddenly understood why their enemies had learned to fear them. Not for their technology or their numbers, but for what happened when they finally stopped trying to be the good guys. Sometimes, the universe needed monsters. Sometimes humanity was happy to oblige.